Let me start off by saying a couple of things. This video will feature major spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2, so if you haven't finished the game or if you haven't played yet and want to go in without knowing anything, don't watch this video because I will be talking about everything, okay? Secondly, as obvious as it is, this is my opinion, and I need to make that very clear because surprisingly, I seem to have a very unpopular perspective. Now, let's just get right into it, and let's begin with the main issue for a lot of people with what happens at the end of the game. We're essentially going to be moving backwards, okay? To keep things simple, this girl named Abby kills Joel, who killed her father because of the whole surgery to create a vaccine that would have killed Ellie in the first game, and even though they save her from a horde of infected, she kills Joel, and then Ellie goes on this long hunt after Abby, and after a couple of setbacks here and there, she finally reaches her near the beaches of Santa Barbara, and after all that has happened, Ellie lets Abby go. Let me make things clear, okay? Abby kills Jesse, cripples Tommy, but at the moment it seems like she killed him, almost kills Dina and the baby, but most importantly, she kills Joel. You would think that would have been enough for Ellie to simply kill her without a second thought, but she decides to let her leave. Now, for me personally, I don't really know how I feel. I really don't, guys, because on one hand, I really wish Ellie just strangled her to death and just left her there to drown. I really just wanted that to happen. But on the other hand, on the alternative, I'm kinda glad that she chose the moral high ground and decided to spare her. Like, to give you the ratio, I'm 75% towards her just strangling Abby to death and 25% towards letting her go. There are multiple stories, however, that show revenge never leaves the character satisfied, and people make a good point that why would she travel all this way, killing countless amounts of people, to finally reach Abby just to not justify Joel's death? It's like she went on a huge flight of stairs and she missed, like, the last step or something. My answer is that I really don't know. I don't know, okay? There was a small flashback of Joel with his guitar that triggered Ellie to not kill Abby, and again, I'm not really sure why this means Abby gets to live, okay? Don't get me wrong, I like Abby, okay? A very unpopular opinion amongst the Last of Us group, okay? I actually like Abby. I think she's a good character. But I personally wanted to see her dead, okay? But with all that being said, there's a difference between a terrible story with bad pacing, poor characters and plot, things like that, and an excellent story with an outcome that you don't agree with. I personally would have been satisfied with Ellie, Dina, and JJ living peacefully within their house, and that's it. But that's not what happened. And sure, the ending did leave a very sour taste in my mouth, but overall, I was so attached to every second that this game had to offer. Every single second. And even though I don't agree with everything that happened in the story, I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with it at this point. I personally did not expect to see so much loss happen within this game. And honestly, it left a few holes in my chest when I saw Joel, Jesse, even Manny, and a few others die. It was so heart-wrenching. And actually, let's talk about one of the deaths that is yet another huge complaint about the game, Joel's death. First, let me just say, this entire situation most likely would have been avoided if Joel and Tommy used fake names, which, I don't get why they didn't, but regardless, it happened. Sometimes I guess characters slip up, and Joel was shotgunned, Tommy was knocked out, along with Ellie being restrained when she found them. There are two things that I wish were a bit different about his death. One, that it wasn't so early into the game. I just wish there was at least a little more time between the current Ellie and Joel. There just wasn't enough. It left me wanting more. And then two, some type of closure between Joel and Ellie. Something that can somewhat bandage the hole in both Ellie's and my own heart. I understand why this happened. It was essentially to shift the focus towards Ellie and the new characters. I'm just really depressed about Joel dying. Like, that hit hard when I saw that, especially that early on. I expected Joel's death, but I didn't expect it so soon. Those were essentially the two main problems. They're huge problems, don't get me wrong. Well, I wouldn't call them necessarily problems, but it was two huge disagreements with where the story went, okay? Like, I'm not gonna lie, two major plot points that I'm like, why did that happen? I didn't want it to happen that way. However, this is what I came up with to essentially satisfy myself and hopefully some of you out there, okay? And just work with me here, okay? Both Abby and Ellie lost a lot of relationships during The Last of Us Part 2, both clawing at each other from the fuel of revenge, but even when they both had a chance to kill their enemy from their perspective, they both chose to let each other live. Abby deciding to let Ellie live 2 times because of her friends in Jackson and Lev in the theater, and Ellie obviously letting Abby live in Santa Barbara. Both had taken so much from each other, friends, fathers, lovers, and I think enough damage had been done. Both were growing tired of fighting, trying to push the reset button essentially. Even Abby in the end, she wasn't interested in fighting, she just wanted to leave and start over. Ellie still had some fire in her chest, but eventually she reached the same conclusion, though she seemed more heartbroken about it. However, that's just my theory. I could be totally wrong about what Naughty Dog meant for it to be, but it does make me feel better about the outcome. Essentially, you know, she knew it would have just kept on going, Ellie, if she just killed Abby, because then Lev would have gone after her. Then again, you could argue that she just could have killed Lev right then and there. And then, I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of, you know, problems that people have with that specific scene. I understand, and I agree with you. I really don't like it that much, but I'm okay with it, is what I'm saying. Like I said though, the ending left a pretty sour taste in my mouth, and I really honestly felt empty inside. But the reason why is because the story was so freaking good. The characters were so well developed, and each one had their own personalities that made me love them. If I didn't care about the story, I wouldn't care about how the game ended. And for me to care about how a game ended this much really speaks to me personally, okay? And when some of the characters died, like Manny and Jesse, like, oh man, did I really feel that? I really liked Manny and Jesse, like those two, man. But what adds on to the sadness even more is the suddenness of their deaths. Again, using the examples of Manny and Jesse, they both got shot and died instantly, leaving no type of closure between them and our main characters, which really adds onto the overall gloom and realistic tone of this atmosphere. You know, that's just how life works sometimes. You don't get this, you know, shot and then the enemy leaves, and then you have this 5-minute speech with, you know, your dying lover or friend, and then you have some sort of closure. Like, it doesn't happen like that sometimes. Some people were angry about that, and then, like, people are angry about a lot of things, but it depends on how you look at it. Again, I'm a very sympathetic person. I understand Abby's perspective. I understand Ellie's perspective. Overall, I like Ellie better than, what's her name? Abby. I can't believe it. Whatever. I like Ellie better than Abby, but I understand Abby's perspective, is what I'm saying. And like I said, it depends on how you look at it, okay? This game also did a really good job of humanizing the enemy, quote-unquote. In this game, the wolves, Lev, and Yara, because when we got to see things from their perspective again, they're just like the people in Jackson, trying to survive and find a way to live peacefully. Though, I will say, Isaac seems to be a bit off, have a few screws loose. Besides the main plot, there are some side events happening that contribute to the overall emotion of the story, and I believe that honestly, those side stories, if you want to call it that way, are half of what I love about Last of Us. Like, it's like 50-50, the main story and then those side stories. One of my favorites being the love between Ellie and Dina. And this is an excellent time to point out that the atmosphere and environment in this game is flawless. When I got to experience the warm, happy home of Dina and Ellie near the end of the game, like, it was probably one of my favorite moments, and it was absolutely gorgeous and pure. I loved it so much. I think Dina, honestly, is one of my favorite characters, and I'm so glad that she was able to survive, though it's really sad to see their happy home abandoned when Ellie returns. There's also, of course, the story of Abby and Owen, who, like Jesse and Dina, moved on from each other, Owen going as far as to get his new girl, Mel, pregnant. Again, this shows how important these characters are to each other and the main characters, and when I had to see that girl again with the headphones playing that game, and then I realized, like, I killed her as Ellie, like, whoa, that hit me hard too, especially the dogs. When, I can't remember when, I'll try to find it, but if I can't find it, I really don't care. But basically, Abby goes, to Bear and then to the other dog's name, and I remember, like, one of the CPUs yelling out, like, "Oh no, Bear!" when we killed them as Ellie, and I was like, oh, really? Oh, that sucks. But anyways, the story of Lev and Yara is also very interesting, leaving the scars and traveling alone when Lev decides to go back for his mother, back on the island, which at the same time the wolves were invading, and we got to see this huge storm of hellfire and all-out war between the two groups, and I just thought it was great. The atmosphere was phenomenal. There was also very heartwarming flashbacks between Joel and Ellie, like on her birthday, Joel took her to a museum, and we can see how strong the relationship is. Like, there is so much I could talk about. If I really wanted to talk about everything about The Last of Us Part 2, both good and bad, it would take like 5 hours, like seriously. But overall, this game was phenomenal, and I loved literally every second of it. If I could give it a score, I would give it a 12 out of 10. Call me easily pleased, but at least I got more enjoyment out of this game than you did, okay? Fellow friends and family, thank you for watching today's video. I'm sure I'll hear a lot about your disagreements in the comment section below. I am prepared for you. I feel like a final boss saying that. But, go ahead. You're not going to change my mind. This is my favorite story game as of right now. But if you did enjoy today's video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video.